Since coming over from Chicago last summer in a trade, Kirby Dach has looked like a different player altogether. Is it the coaching? Is it the change of scenery? We'll be getting into all those reasons on this edition of Habs Digest. Hello, bonjour, ahoy, and welcome to today's edition of Habs Digest. I'm your host, Josh Gosse, alongside my co-host, Jesse Poirier. And real quick, before we get into the video, quick reminder to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. If you're a new or returning viewer who hasn't hit that button yet, it'd be really appreciated. Jesse, Kirby Dach has been phenomenal, for lack of a better word. I don't think you need a better word. Since coming over from Chicago, our expectations were maybe in the middle, but he has blown them all out of the water, capped off by this month earning Habs the prize NHL Player of the Month for the team. And they say, like, the strategy was to pair him with Hoffman, and that duo stayed together, but he's also played with the likes of Josh Anderson, Evgeny Dadonov, Jesse Ylönen, not the best wingers in the world, but he still managed 6 goals and 4 assists in 14 games in January. And that's just a microcosm of the amazing season he's been having since the start. Jesse, when I say to you Kirby Dach has been playing so much better than we could have anticipated, what are the main reasons that come to your mind?
For me, it's that he's just developing as an NHL player. He was always talented. He always had these skills. And this is just kind of along his trajectory to kind of get there at this point in time. And for me, it kind of makes sense, Josh. It's like the game's quicker than it's ever been right now. So you got to imagine, as a young player coming into that, there's going to be maybe a little bit of a longer adjustment to really just get to that speed before you just start playing like everybody else. So I really think that it was always there for him. We would have seen a huge uptick in his production in Chicago, but I think we're just seeing it right now here in Montreal anyway.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're bang on with that, in that Chicago felt like they were a little impatient with him. I'm still a little confused what their plan is, because they traded away a bunch of their young players like Brandon Hagel, and then they signed Seth Jones, and they moved Kirby Dach. It's like Kirby Dach, though, like, is such a young player. Let's bring up his hockey DB page, because just a reminder to you guys, he just turned 22 a couple weeks ago. This guy was 21 up until January 21st this year. He's a 22-year-old 6'4" center who really was given some opportunities on the Blackhawks with the likes of Kane, with the likes of Taves being some of his top line mates. But you can see this year, as he's developing, as we all expected, a guy his size, when he learns to use his size and skill, these numbers go up. 11 goals, 22 assists, both career highs, naturally has a career high in points at 33 in just 51 games. Jesse, one thing here I wanted to point out to you is the 43 penalty minutes ties a career high so far. Do you think that ties into his physicality and this way that he has sort of developed into the NHL level sort of physical game, and has been using that to his advantage recently?
Yeah, I think for some players, it's good sometimes, being physical really engages them in the game. And I think that Kirby Dach is one of those players. That's one of his greatest strengths, right? When he's using his body. Because one of the main points that I like from Dach so far this year is just his possession of the puck, like in the offensive zone. Like, he's so intelligent and he's patient. He's not trying to rush plays. He's really slowing the game down like all great players do. So I just think his poise and his IQ right now and using his frame is what's really allowing us to see the best Kirby Dach right now.
And I think a lot of that comes down to, as well, like we saw in Chicago, he played a lot with Patrick Kane. And people were like, oh, if you can't produce with Patrick Kane, maybe you're not cut out for this. Well, of course, a lot of hot takes when there's young players coming into the league and struggling. But I think part of the reason he's been able to use those exact points to his success, Jesse, is a bit because of the coaching. Martin St. Louis was just brought in last year as sort of a player's coach, a guy who can motivate the young guys, get guys just, as he has said so many times, buy into the team concepts. But within those concepts, there's no real rigid structure. You do what you see, you do what you feel. And do you think, because I sure think so, that him having that lack of pressure to like feed a certain line mate, to have to do certain things with the people he's been playing with, versus coming to Montreal and just being like, play with Suzuki, Caufield, do whatever you need to. You know what? Fine, you'll center your own line now with Josh Anderson. Do you think that freedom to just be himself has helped him along as well, thanks to Coach St. Louis' coaching?
I absolutely do. I think that coaching is a big reason also why Kirby Dach is so much better this year. And again, we need to give kudos to Martin St. Louis, because he's showing in his very short term as an NHL coach so far that he's able to take players, young players who are gifted, who have lots of skill, and turn them into great NHL players. He's first done this with Cole Caufield and with Kirby Dach. So I think our organization picked an excellent head coach because you wanted somebody who would help in development. I think him just being such a great communicator is definitely a big part of that. But also, just that belief in him as well, right? Because another knock on Dach from last year was just like, okay, you can't win a faceoff to save his life. So it could have been very easy for Montreal to just kind of take the easy way out and just say, okay, this guy's not touching the faceoff dot again. We're just going to have him as a winger, and he's playing great. But I think to still believe in him and to still give him that chance to say, we might have a dime in the rough. We might have somebody that's much more valuable to us than we actually realize, to believe in that and to train and now just kind of see some of the results from that. You got to feel like the organization's really happy about him right now.
I think you're right, and the faceoff dot has been a very strong point of his recently. I think within the last 5 or 6 games, he's over 50% after being, I think, the worst in the NHL at under 40% or around 40% last season. And I think another thing, too, you sort of touched on, the organization is very happy with him. You got to feel like Montreal as an organization, not just Coach St. Louis, but Jeff Gorton and Kent Hughes, who made that decision to bring him in, really gave him a positive attitude. And I can't speak to the Chicago organization and what was going on there, but of course there's a bit of that old boys club with Kane and Taves still around, and some other guys hanging around the team, and of course a bunch of controversies around the Blackhawks. I'm not going to say Montreal is a pressure-free environment, because it is not. It is probably the most brutal place to play for media, maybe Montreal and Toronto. But when it comes to just playing, especially for this new coach, especially for this new staff, this new general manager and president of hockey ops, buying into you, it's got to feel really good. Jesse, one thing I wanted to get into right now is some old scouting reports of Kirby Dach, because a lot of these are very interesting to look at now that we've seen him play this season. So without further ado, let's just get right into this. A couple of ones that I wanted to get into was the first one from Cam Robinson with Dobber Prospects. These are from 2019. Says he's a pass-first center who owns great awareness and deft puck skills, uses his body well to protect the puck and exploit seams. He lacks explosiveness with his skating and can stand to play with more pace at times. Sure, this is one thing you'll see throughout all these here, is that they say maybe he lacks a bit of explosiveness and his skating is not the best in the class. I wanted to talk about Chris Peters' one. Dach is highly intelligent and smooth, which allows him to be one of the more gifted playmakers in the draft, despite non-explosive skating. But the one here, Jesse, I wanted to talk about mainly, the one from Hannah Stewart here, from The Score, quote, despite being 6'4", Dach isn't unwieldy. He's not the best skater in the class, but it's a positive when a prospect that tall still has good agility and edge work. Dach pairs his size and skating with a high offensive ceiling, and he'll become a more consistent player as he develops. And I think that's the key thing there, Jesse. We saw these scouting reports. Everyone knew he was a great playmaker, and even in Chicago, he showed those flashes of brilliance. We knew he could be that. But the fact he was using his size at a junior level, couldn't quite do that with Chicago, seemed a little tentative, but he had to work his way up. He was a 19-year-old coming off of a brutal wrist injury, getting used to the NHL again. And now that he's used to the NHL, came to Montreal, all these positives from these scouting reports as he's developed, and started playing with a team that believes in him. All these strengths that we've seen in these scouting reports, it seems like it was a perfect future prediction, don't you think?
Yeah, that scout definitely needs a raise for sure. Definitely on that money all the way through. I think it's a great player, and he's not the only one, right? We're seeing a lot of stars around the NHL where it might take a year or two to really come into your own. I think we're going to see something very similar with Juraj Slafkovsky. It's going to take a little bit of time, but they're going to develop into the league. It's a fast league. It takes a little bit of time to get up to speed, but I mean, watch out once you do.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this guy has been more than we could have ever asked for. All the strengths pre-draft are finally coming to fruition, and this is just the start of it. Of course, he had that insane hot start to the season, was almost a point per game. He's dropped off a bit to about 0.65 points per game, but for a guy who was really expected to not be that amazing coming over from Chicago, he's already put up career-high numbers with still 20-plus games left to go. It's very possible he gets to 50 points this season. And to top off this video, Jesse, I wanted to bring up his contract. Something that, coming over, we knew there was injury history. We knew he maybe had some weaknesses. Just when you see these numbers, this contract, when he signed it, we were like, okay, that seems pretty fair, right? We'll have some control of it. But this guy, we got him for $3.36 million for the next, after this season, another 3 seasons, and then he's a restricted free agent in 2026. I mean, how early? I mean, right now, I think that contract looks like a bargain, but do you think that has potential to become one of the best contracts in the NHL if he keeps this upward pace?
I think it will for sure. Paying that for a second line center, I think is absolutely amazing. What's so nice is that's going to free us up with our young core. Is that's going to really free up for possibly having some bigger contracts around them as well as we develop.
Yeah, Cole Caufield's contract extension is looming. He's going to be getting a lot of money, probably $8-9 million a year. But having that Dach cap hit for the next 3 seasons after this, like you said, is perfect, and it's going to align very well with eventually when we need to pay Slafkovsky and Guhle and the likes of those guys a bit more once the veterans are shipped out. But boy, Jesse, I mean, I've been nothing but happy with what Kirby Dach has done this season, and I know you have been too. That'll do it for this edition of Habs Digest. If you enjoyed this different kind of style of video, kind of highlighting Kirby Dach, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. We really enjoy all your support, and we hope it continues long into the future. I'm Josh Gosse for my co-host Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.